morning's topic, B'siyata D'Shmaya, is ZAYIN ADAR, the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not just a yahrzeit, it's the day that he was born. What's the makor for this yahrzeit? It's not in the Torah. The one yahrzeit in the Torah is the yahrzeit of Aaron HaKohen, which is Rosh Chodesh Av. The yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, ZAYIN ADAR, is not in the Torah, but it's in Shas, in a few places. The Gemara Megillah, the Gemara Kedushin, in Saita. The Gemara Megillah, and other places, it's a Medrash. Haman, when he made the Goyrel, it fell out in Adar, and he was very happy because it was it was the month Shemes Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Gemara says, V'lo Yada, that the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, ZAYIN ADAR, is also the day that he was born. So Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit coming up this Tuesday. Tuesday, ZAYIN ADAR is the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. Interesting, the Marsha asks in Chedusha Agadis and Kedushin, the Pasuk says in Vayelech, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Hine ben meya ve'esrim shana anochi hayoim. Today I'm 120. Frek the Marsha, if Moshe Rabbeinu was born on ZAYIN ADAR and he was nifter on ZAYIN ADAR, it comes out that when he was nifter he was 121. Right? The day of your birthday, you're the next year. So Frek the Marsha, if Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter the day that he was born, ZAYIN ADAR, so then he wasn't 120, he was 121. I'm sorry?
Yes, the day he turned 120.
He's saying maybe he turned 120 that day.
19 years, he turned 120.
Could be. Marsha says a different teretz. The Marsha and the Makna both say, I hear what you're saying, Taka, could be that was the day that he wasn't. Lamaisa, it says that, there's a different thing, it says that the Eibush is Memala Shenoisav full. So here, Pshat is he turned 120, but it wasn't a full 120 years. Lamaisa, the Marsha says that Enechanami Taka, be a Soida, if you count the years, he's Taka, Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter was 121. But Dr. Marsha, the Makna is Myrich a little bit more, and he says, from where do we know this? He's going on the Gemara Kedushin as Misper Yemecha Amale, which is going Yamecha. The Rabbeinu Shalom fills up the days. If you count years, Enechanami on ZAYIN ADAR, Moshe Rabbeinu turned 121. But Yamecha, which I'm not sure why, but translates into a lower counting, the Hainu months. So a month, if you say, come back to me in a month. So what's today? Today's Gimel Adar. So come back to me in a month means next month, Gimel Adar. In a year, the next year, when it's already next year, ZAYIN ADAR, it's already the next year. But in months, that's a month. That's how you count it. The mail is up to Marsha, ZAYIN ADAR to ZAYIN ADAR. If you count the years, it's taka more than 120. But if you count with the months, it's 120 years. This is up to Marsha. Being that it's the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, gepaskent lahalacha, the siman Tavkuf Pei is the siman of Tainus, different other Tainesim, not a Tainus Sibur, but the Shulchan Aruch brings, it's a day of Tainus. The day of, the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu is a day of Tainus, a Tainus Yachid. In Yalkut Mamloyes, he explains why is it a day of Tainus. Even if we're not going to fast, but we should know when the Shulchan Aruch brings it's a day of Tainus, why is it a day of Tainus? The Lashon, he says, the Schusoi Shal Moshe, Oimedes Lahem Li Yisrael Ad Bias HaGoyel. We'll soon see more about it, but the Schus of Moshe Rabbeinu, we're living off the Schus of Moshe Rabbeinu. Ad Bias HaGoyel. Ulechein Noyagim Lehisanois, to fast, and we gather in Bata Knesiyas, V'yesh bezehes oiris gedoyle l'tshuva. Every fast is like that. The tachlis of a fast is to bring to tshuva. So too on the day of the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu to bring of tshuva. Always a person should do tshuva, but it's important to tap into tshuva on the day of the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu we're living off the schus of Moshe Rabbeinu. it's taka the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Lagabe Tachnun, even those that don't say Tachnun on yahrzeits, it's open discussion. L'maisa, these different clear makoiris in Sands and even in Satmar, the Divrei Yoels, he davened a long Shemoneh Esrei. When he finished Chazaras Hashatz, when he finished Shemoneh Esrei, they finished already Chazaras Hashatz, and they said Kaddish because it's the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. And he said to say Tachna right then and there, even though they said Kaddish. So just on the note, it's a Yom Tainis, a day of Tshuva. Interesting, Tosfos in Nozeh Daf Yudalid, it could be Tosfos referring to only the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifta. I don't know if it's in future years, but Tosfos says, "Ubiyoim Moshe beZayin Adar." He's speaking a neder din. Mistama Rabim Nodru beneder. Why? Machmas Tsar. So it's a Yom Tainis, it's a Yom Tshuva. Maybe it's even a Yom Tsar. However, even though it's a Yom Tshuva, it's also a very happy day. I want to quote two Chassam Sofers, B'negei to ZAYIN ADAR. One Chassam Sofer, the Chassam Sofer says, Ein lanu simcha v'tuv leiv. There isn't a day of happiness, v'tuv leiv, good-hearted, ki yom ZAYIN ADAR, like the day of ZAYIN ADAR. What's the mile of ZAYIN ADAR? Shabai Karas Moshe Rabbeinu Bris in Yisrael. Says the Chassam Sofer, that day, the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, v'hoyachashav yoysim yoyim matan Torah. So even though it's a Yom Tainis, it's a Yom Tshuva, it's also a Yom Simcha Gedola. Chassam Sofer. It's also a Yom Simcha because it's a Yom Shenoilad by Moshe, of course, right? That was Haman's mistake. Haman was happy that it's Yom Shemes by Moshe, v'lo yoda, that it was the day that he was born. In another place, the Chassam Sofer.
Why is the Gemara have to say that lo yoda Shenoilad by Moshe? Such a.
Even the day Shemes also. Yeah, I hear the Shaila. I hear. Why dafka v'lo yada shemes? He also, the truth is, you're right. V'lo yada also that the yom shemes is it's a gewaldige day also. Yeah. And another Chassam Sofer in Droshes, the Chassam Sofer, he speaks about it. Kishanafal pur b'yerach, Haman was excited. Omnam, he made a mistake. Now it's interesting, Taka, because here the Chassam Sofer is mamash going on that Haman was excited because it was yom shemes. And Itaka goes, you're right, the Gemara says, V'lo yada shenoilad. And he goes, he says, Amram sheker nochal. He says, because that day is like the day of the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, like hukva elo laharomas keren dorshe dardar. That day is a day for the uplifting, for the glory of Torah. So Moira de Gazach says, the Chassam Sofer, B'yoim misasai, the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, noildu kol chachmei Yisrael. The day that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter is the day that chachmei Yisrael were born. Another thing says the Chassam Sofer, v'yedua, in that tshuva, ki kol chachmei Yisrael nikru Moshe. Now, I don't have this Bekias, but my father put out a sefer Darkei Moshe with stories from Reb Moshe, and he brings, and then I found that afterwards in the Hagdama to Reb Moshe and Chelek Ches, Reb Moshe Feinstein was born on ZAYIN ADAR, and as brought over there also as there Reb Moshe Feinstein was named Moshe after Moshe Rabbeinu. They bring that his father wasn't sure because the bris was on Purim, 8 days later is Purim, maybe to name Mordechai Lamaisa, they named him Moshe after Moshe Rabbeinu. I'll call upon him what's clear, I'm saying over the Chassam Sofer, just I'm stelling to Lagaber Moshe Feinstein Zatzal, whose yahrzeit now is Yud Gimel, Tainus Esther, But Al Kopanim, the Chassam Sofer in two places says that the day, the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu is a Yom Simcha. It's a day that Gedolei ADAR are born. So it's so to speak, Al Kopanim, that it's both. And that's how we explain. The Medrash even speaks about it, that was the mistake of Haman. Haman made a goyrel, and he was every day of the week didn't work out for him. There was something else that the Tsar said it's not going to work. Then he went through every single month of the year, also didn't work, till he came to Adar, and Adar he was very happy. It was the only month that didn't have a Yom Tov. And says the Medrash, V'lo yoda shenoiled. We're saying over here also, Lagabi Misasi as well. But Al Kapanim, a clear takeaway that ZAYIN Adar, besides that we see clearly in Shulchan Aruch, it's a Yom of Tainus, it's also a Yom of Simcha, and we'll soon see a little more, it's also Bechlal, a day of connecting in Torah. Why is it that ZAYIN Adar is hukva a day for Tainus? Why? Because of the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. Lag Ba'omer is the yahrzeit of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and it's a Hilula. This is in Shulchan Aruch. We don't say Tachnan. So what's the difference when it comes to ZAYIN Adar? You say Tachnan, and it's a Tainus. And Lag Ba'omer, it's not a Yom Tainus. It's not born in Shulchan Aruch a Yom Tainus. And not only that, it's a day that you don't say Tachnan. What's the chiluk? So I saw a teretz brought in the name of the Divrei Chaim, and he says the following: ZAYIN Adar, the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, as the Gemara tells us, that many halachas were forgotten. Many halachas were forgotten the day that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter. Therefore, it's a Yom Tainus. Masha Enkein Lag Ba'omer, the yahrzeit of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, is the day, not that Torah was forgotten, but just the opposite. That's the day that he wrote the Zohar. So that's why it's the yahrzeit then is a Yom Tov, so to speak, called it's a Yom Tov Ilula, but often you don't say Tachnan.
If the day that Moshe was nifter was the day that all Chacham Yisrael were born, and technically it's the same thing.
Yeah, but once something was lost.
It's both. It's both. It's a Yom Simcha and it's also a Yom Tainus. It's both. What day was it? What day of the week was it that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter? We know ZAYIN Adar. That's clear. Gemaras, Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter by ZAYIN Adar. What day of the week was it? So the Rishonim in a few places, the Tur in Hilchos Shabbos, Tosfos bring B'Shem the Sar Shalom. These are Sar Shalom of bells, but the Sar Shalom from the Rishonim. And the emes is that it's a Zohar in this week's parsha. I don't know Zohar, but they bring the Zohar in this week's parsha, Parshas Truma, that the Zohar says that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter Shabbos. And when Shabbos, so the Torah says Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter Shabbos afternoon, and that's why we say Tzidkoscha, Tziduk Adin. You'll say Tzidkoscha tomorrow. If you didn't know, we say Tzidkoscha, Tziduk Adin, because that's the time that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter. It's not ZAYIN Adar this Shabbos, it's Tuesday, but he was nifter Shabbos afternoon. Interesting to note that Shabbos afternoon is a Zman Mesugel for Tefillah. It's also brought in that Zohar. During the week, in the afternoon, it's a more of the Eis Din. Shabbos afternoon, it's Eis Ratzain. In the Sefer Megala Amukis, from the Achroinim, he has a whole Sefer with many pshatim on the Pasuk V'eschanan al Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu was mespalel to the Eibush that to go into Eretz Yisrael. Many pshatim. One of the pshatim, if I understand, I tried to go through it thoroughly, but there's also, I think, Kabbalah mixed in, but if I understand clearly, the Chelek HaPshat, V'aschanan al Hashem be'esahi, that Moshe Rabbeinu was mespalel to the Rabbeinu Shalom, Shabbos afternoon, begging the Rabbeinu Shalom to go into Eretz Yisrael. And that's when the Eibusha said that, no, the Eibusha told him not to mespalel weiter, and he was nifter. Kapana Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter Shabbos afternoon. That's a tour brought in Hilchas Shabbos, and that's how we say Tzidkascha. So the Rishonim ask the following question. Two questions. First of all, the pasuk that we just said in Vayelech, Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Vayomer aleim b'meyo ve'esrim shana anochi hayoim." Today, that was the day, the full 120 years, ZAYIN ADAR. If it was Shabbos, how did Moshe Rabbeinu write hayoim? You're not allowed to write on Shabbos. And the same Shaila, the Rishonim, Tosfos asks, it's brought that he wrote a Sefer Torah for all the Shvatim, 13 Sefer Torah. So how did Moshe Rabbeinu write the Sefer Torah on Shabbos? He wrote it the day that it was Nifter. So Makoyach this kasher, the Rishonim say, Bekoyach this kasher, that Taka wasn't Shabbos, it was Erev Shabbos. Moshe Rabbeinu was Nifter Erev Shabbos. Oh, so what? I don't know why we don't say it's Friday afternoon, but what I could answer, so why you could ask something else also. So, but why do we say Tzidkascha? Very good. Why do we say Tzidkascha if Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't Nifter Shabbos afternoon? Erev Shabbos. I don't know when Erev Shabbos. Shabbos afternoon Tzidkascha.
Wasn't also David, Yosef, Aaron, or some other people also died Friday afternoon?
Shabbos, David. Who else? David. It's Mavur. Yeah.
Yosef, maybe Aaron, or I mean, it's pretty probably bound with this other.
Oh, you're talking right. That's the 3 psukim of Tzidkascha. Yeah, very good. One, which 3 taka? Yeah, richtig. You're right. And Yosef, who was the other one? Yosef? Oh, yeah. The Bach brings. The Isa Bezoyer, also Betruma, this week's parsha. Shagam Yosef, the David Mesu B'Shabbos B'Mincha. That's why it's 3 psukim. Valkein Oimrim Gimel Tzidkascha, 3 psukim. Very good. Gavaldik. So some Rishonim argue and say that Moshe Rabbeinu was not Nifter for Haraya because he wrote the Sefer Torah. Why do we say Tzidkascha Shabbos afternoon? I mean, it could be taka for the others that were Nifter. Says the Torah, we say Tzidkascha because the Rishonim are going back to Gehenna Matzah Shabbos. That's what the Torah says. What'd you say?
What we just said because 3 people.
Yeah. So yeah.
Moshe wasn't Nifter on Shabbos, and it should be 2.
So I'm just the Torah says the reason why we say Tzidkascha, a new reason. The Torah says a new reason why we say Tzidkascha, says the Torah. The Yesh Medrash Shaloi Mes. Then, like we just mentioned, Umasha Oimrim Tzidkascha is because the Rishon they go back to Gehenna. The Torah Simen Reish Tzadik Beis. The Bach says a teretz the following. The Bach says Moshe Rabbeinu is Nifter Friday. I'll read the Lashon. He was Nifter Friday. Uboy bayoy malu yamav shnoisav. He was Nifter Friday. And he wrote the 13th Sefer Torah. But the Kvura of Moshe Rabbeinu was first Shabbos afternoon. The Rabbeinu Shalom that was Koiver Moshe Rabbeinu was Shabbos afternoon. The Kvura loyhaisa ela b'mincha, and we was Moshe Rabbeinu in that time. So the Bach bei misel Kvura yemutel b'kanfei hashchina kaviyachol. He was together with the Shechina. Al Kaponim he says taka like the Rishonim that he was Nifter Erev Shabbos, but the Kvura was Shabbos afternoon. I guess he meyashav the Tzidkascha, but the Chassam Sofer brings from the Shlah in Shuvas Chassam Sofer. And he says that Moshe Rabbeinu was mashpia the coolness. However you understand that, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't write it. He told his pen, the feather, to write. Hazazak the Chassam Sofer from the Shlah. The Chassam Sofer asks, Lafidaman the Amar, that Shvisas Kalim is the Raisa, so how is his pen able to write? As I reflect the Chassam Sofer. And the Chassam Sofer says, it's not ein derech ksiva bakach. Ein derech ksiva bakach that the pen should write by itself, and therefore, even though Lamanda Amar Shvisas Kalem. In other words, your Kalem are not allowed to do malacha. It's Issa D'Oraisa. That's only malacha that's normally done. For the pen to write without anybody holding on to the pen is not the norm. A mail, it's not nichlal.
Moshe was.
It's also not davar either. Like, it's not the touch your pen.
When was he mashpi? I don't know, but this is another terrorist. Even if you say Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter on Shabbos, that's how he wrote.
Well, anyways, you wrote 13 Sefer Torah in one day.
Yeah.
He waited between this letter.
When was Moshe Rabbeinu born? I mean, it says ZAYIN ADAR, but when ZAYIN ADAR? When in the day? So the Meshech Chochmah, in the end of Megillas Esther, the Meshech Chochmah explains the mistake of Haman, V'lo yoda, that Moshe was born ZAYIN ADAR. If he was educated enough to know that it was the yard site, why would he not know? Why would he not know? So the Meshech Chochmah explains that the pasuk tells us when Moshe Rabbeinu was born that it lit up the room. The Melech the Meshech Chochmah, Al Karchach, he was born by night. So that's first of all, we want to know when he was nifter. He was nifter Shabbos afternoon. He was born by night. But the Meshech Chochmah says that was the mistake of Haman. Haman went like with the Goyim's cheshbon, that the day starts in the morning and the night afterwards is connected to that day. Not like how we go that the night before is part of the day, but rather the next night. Haman, Dr. Meshech Chochmah, Haman knew that Moshe Rabbeinu was born the night before, but he thought that was Vav. So therefore, V'lo yoda, that Moshe Rabbeinu was Noilad Zayin, he thought it was a different day. Interesting to educate ourselves. There was a minig, there is a minig in certain places not to make Kiddush Levana on ZAYIN ADAR. Maybe more in bells, but there's such a minig. And in Shvus Yaakov, he has a tshuva about it. Others also, they say the reason is because Moshe Rabbeinu is kachama, and the koyach of Yeshua is like the Levana. So Meila ve'ena bedin b'yom shenifter to make Kiddush Levana. L'maisa, he's choylek and he says avada you can make before. Tisha B'Av, there's a concept of not making, it's not a day of simcha. But ZAYIN ADAR, it's not a sad day. The whole Adar is supposed to be happy, Mishenechnas Adar. So avada you could, but it's interesting to know there's such a minig in Klal Yisrael not to make Kiddush Levana on ZAYIN ADAR. Another pointer, B'negeya, ZAYIN ADAR being the yard site of Moshe Rabbeinu. In next week's parsha, Parshas Tetzava, there's no mention of the name of Moshe Rabbeinu. In the Balaturim, the Tur from the Rishonim, says and explains the reason for that is because Moshe Rabbeinu said by the Chet HaEgel, the Eibishter wanted to be Moicha Klal Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I want to take it on. Erase me, Mecheni no Mesifracha. Parshas Tetzava says the Tur, the Balaturim, that's where it was Neskayim, Mecheni no Mesifracha, that is not mentioned. So the Avodas Yisrael says it's interesting. Why Dafka Parshas Tetzava? So he says because Parshas Tetzava almost always falls out. That's the week of the yard set of ZAYIN ADAR. ZAYIN ADAR is this coming Tuesday, Parshas Tetzava. So Mecheni no Mesifracha, it's not in the Parsha, it's the week that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter. There's another pshat from the Kedushas Tzion, and he says, why Parshas Tetzava, next week's Parsha? And he says, because Moshe Rabbeinu, when did he say Mecheni no Mesifracha? By the Chet HaEgel, which is Parshas Kisisa. We have a klal, Ma'achrim Pronius. When a tinus falls out on Shabbos, we push it away. So this Mecheni no Mesifracha the Eibishter was constantly pushing it off, another day, another week, pushing it off, not to have to do it. Till it came to Parshas Tetzava, which was the last week before Kisisa again. So Mela, that's why it's Parshas Kisisa. He also says a remes, Macheni no mesifracha mesefer chaf. Parshas Tetzava is the 20th parsha. If you start Bereshis Noach Lech Lecha, Macheni no mesifracha. Moshe Rabbeinu said mesefer chaf from the 20th parsha. Agav, this is in the Rishonim that they say that it's not in Moshe Rabbeinu is mentioned miyoim that Moshe Rabbeinu was born till the end of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu is mentioned in every single parsha. Lamaisa, there are some parshas that he's not mentioned. Parshas Eikiv, Re'ei, Shoftim.
Before he was born.
No, in Devarim. No, from where he was born in Shemos till the end. There are some parshas that he's not mentioned. So what are you telling me? He's not mentioned in Tetzava. He's not mentioned in other parshas as well. Lamaisa, the Lashon HaRosh, when the Rosh says that Moshe Rabbeinu is mentioned in every parsha, he says from when he was born till Mishnah Torah. What's the pshat by Mishnah Torah? Moshe Rabbeinu was the one. Mishnah Torah is from Moshe Rabbeinu. So Mela there, if he's not mentioned, he's the one speaking. It's not such a raya kasha as opposed to Parshas Tetzava. Just to be Messiah with two takeaways, these many things. Moshe Rabbeinu, it's Zichru Torahs Moshe. The Torah that we have is from Moshe Rabbeinu. Number one, in the Ohr Chaim HaKadosh in Parshas Tetzava, something very powerful. I'm going to quote the Lashon. Just the end of it, but he says that the four Goliaths, every Goliath, we came out of each Goliath and we're going to come out b'schus of one Gadol Hadar, one Tzaddik, his Lashon is. The first three Goliaths is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The fourth Goliath, the Goliath that we're in now, is b'schus Moshe Rabbeinu. Says the Ohr Chaim HaKadosh, why is the Goliath so long? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that gave us the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu is waiting for us to be oisik b'Torah, to be goyal. That was a quote, a Lashon. Ulezeh nis'arach ha'golis ki chol oit, says the Ohr Chaim, shein oiskim b'Torah mitzvahs. As he says, Ein Moshe Chafetz Ligol Am B'Telem and HaTorah. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't want to redeem a nation that's not Oisik B'Torah.
What's the level? What's he waiting?
Just to finish a minute, less than a minute. It's interesting, the concept that Moshe Rabbeinu gave us the Torah. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen Milabelin says, At Kedei Kach, that Moshe Rabbeinu, his kids didn't take over, because the Keser Torah, the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu gave, is something that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to everybody in Klal Yisrael. That's why it wasn't for his kids. If it would be his kids, it's like he's moirish the Torah to his kids. It's for everybody in Klal Yisrael. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu is waiting to be goyal Klal Yisrael. The Klal Yisrael should be oisib the Torah. And lastly, one more point, the Sefer Charedim. The Sefer Charedim from the early Achroinim, the time of the Beis Yosef, the Arizal, and Tzvas. The Sefer Charedim says that Moshe Rabbeinu is Messiah for every Baal Tshuva to be Meshav, to do Tshuva. It's interesting, the Charedim, stam on a side note, the Sefer Charedim was the one who composed the song Yedid Nefesh. And he writes in his Sefer that the way to be Makayim Avas Hashem, one of the ways is through Shira. It brings the Rishonim composed songs, the Even Ezra, he did Nefesh other songs as well also. Al Kaponim, the Sefer Charedim says that Moshe Rabbeinu helps us out to do tshuva. So B'meila, Sai Mitzad ZAYIN ADAR on the day, but B'chlal, the takeaway being that it's the yard site, but even in general, site to be neschazik and Torah, like the Ohr Chaim HaKadosh says, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is waiting for us to take us out of Galus. And also, like the Sefer Charedim says, there are Moshe Rabbeinu's here to help us to do tshuva. We should be zoiche, loshav el Hashem, et imischazek el l'toira, for the Gula Shleima. Have a wonderful Shabbos.